This happened a few months ago. I had just moved to the city and settled into my small apartment. The walls were thin, and everything felt too quiet at night. I was a freelance graphic designer, trying to find more clients. Craigslist seemed like a good way to pick up side gigs and meet new people. I didn't know then that it would lead to something horrifying that I found an ad for a photography session. It excited me, so I texted back. Soon, I received a message asking to meet in a park at midnight. Instantly, a knot formed in my stomach. I thought about backing out but decided it wouldn't hurt to check it out. I arrived at the park, the moon casting long shadows under the trees. The air was chilly, and I shivered. I waited and waited, but no one appeared. It felt silly standing there alone, glancing around in the darkness. Maybe I should have just stayed home. I left, feeling uneasy. A week later, I took another Craigslist job. I hoped this time things would be different. I was helping someone clean out a storage unit. The smell of dust filled the air as I sorted through boxes. I found stacks of photographs. Faces stared back at me, people I thought I recognized. Each photo had a date written on the back from years ago. My heart raced as I searched for familiar features. I shoved the photos back into the boxes, feeling uneasy. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then came my final encounter. A client invited me to a secluded restaurant for a meeting. I thought it was odd but shrugged it off. After all, sometimes creative ideas need a little mystery. I walked in, but the place was dead silent. No tables were set. My pulse quickened as I checked my phone. It was the right day. "Hello? Is anyone here?" I called out nervously. No response. I moved deeper into the empty space. That's when I spotted a flickering candle on a far table. Someone had been there. Panic set in as I flipped a chair over. I wanted to see if it had been used moments before or days ago. I took a step back. Then I heard it. A voice, low and soft, asked, "Why are you sitting there?" I turned, but no one was there. Fear paralyzed me. I gripped the table for support, trying to breathe. What was happening? I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy. The room had this chill that seeped into my bones. I couldn't shake the feeling that the encounters were blurring together, leaving me unsettled. What was worse was the feeling that someone was watching me, lurking just outside of view. I felt trapped in these strange moments that made me anxious and afraid. I never returned to Craigslist. Maybe it was a mistake to look for clients online. I still get chills when I think about those encounters. I question the shadows in my apartment at night. What were those experiences really? I wish I knew. I tried to put those experiences behind me. I focused on my work, kept my head down, and avoided anything that reminded me of those eerie moments. But shadows lingered in my mind, and every time I heard a creak or a whisper in my apartment, I felt the weight of paranoia settle over me. A month passed since I last dealt with Craigslist. Life had settled into a routine, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had taken root in my gut. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I came across an article about a local photographer. His work was stunning, but something in the description struck me. I paused, staring at his name. It was the same name that had been inked on the back of the photographs I found in the storage unit. My heart raced as I read further. He'd gone missing 5 years ago. My breath caught in my throat. Why were there photos of him? Were those people I recognized the last ones to see him? My mind started racing. I remembered the flickering candle and the voice. Was he trying to reach out for help? A chill shot through me. Without thinking, I found myself typing his name in the search bar, desperate for more answers. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through page after page of searches, only to find vague references to his art and his disappearance. Then, something caught my eye. One forum discussed strange sightings around the old park where I had waited for my initial meeting. People reported hearing whispers, seeing shadows darting between trees, and feeling a palpable unease in the air. My pulse quickened. This couldn't be a coincidence. That night, against my better judgment, I returned to the park. I felt silly, clutching a flashlight like it would protect me from whatever lurked in the dark. The trees swayed with the wind, casting ominous shapes around me. I half expected to see someone emerge from the shadows, but it was just me and the cold night. After pacing for a while, I caught sight of something strange on the ground. I stepped closer. It was a small bundle of photographs, weathered and slightly damp. My heart raced. I recognized some of the faces. They were the same people from the storage unit photos. But the most unsettling part was the last picture. It showed the empty restaurant I had visited weeks earlier, a flickering candle in the center of the table. The date on the back was marked for that very night. That's when I sensed it. A presence behind me. I turned, the flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. I saw nothing, but the heavy stillness pressed down on me. Questions flooded my mind. Who had left the pictures? Why were they here? Did it connect back to the photographer? Panic surged. I stumbled back, trying to calm my racing heart. That's when I saw the outlines of figures hidden among the trees. They weren't just shadows. Someone was watching me, and I was not alone. I turned to flee, but the shadows moved closer, whispering my name. I bolted, the flashlight flickering wildly as I sprinted through the trees. The whispers grew louder, urgent and dissonant, and I felt the air shift around me as I ran. My muscles burned, but fear propelled me forward. The shadows closed in, their forms melding with the darkness, and I fought to keep the growing dread at bay. I stumbled onto the cracked path leading out of the park, blinded by adrenaline. I didn't stop until I reached the edge, gasping for air. The night felt quieter now, the chilling whispers replaced by the sound of my own heartbeat. But I had to find out more. I reached for my phone, too frantic to care that my hands shook. The forum. I needed to revisit it. As I pulled it up, I spotted a new post just updated. It was from someone who claimed to have seen something extraordinary in that very park. Their excitement was palpable, even through the screen. They described a gathering at midnight with flickering candles, shadows dancing in unison, and voices chanting in a strange language. This was no coincidence. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I had to know if the photographer was linked to this. With renewed determination, I searched for any mention of his name and stumbled across a thread discussing the last known photos he'd taken before his disappearance. One name stood out. A woman who had apparently been his muse. Her face lit up in a screenshot of someone else's post. I recognized her, one of the faces in the photographs from the storage unit. I felt a mix of recognition and dread. It was becoming clearer, but the urgency to dig deeper almost consumed me. But then, everything shifted. The screen froze for an agonizing moment. I felt a prickling sensation creep up my arms, much like the feeling of being watched. I blinked, and suddenly, the picture of the woman morphed into a portrait, eerily enhanced, her eyes boring into mine. The caption read, "Find us before it's too late." A chill washed over me. I searched for a way to back out, but before I could react, the phone shut off completely. The bright screen faded to black, and I felt a weight in the air, pressing me down. I was alone. Or so I thought. The moment I turned around, I saw her standing there just beyond the threshold of my apartment. The very same woman from the photo. Her features were just as I remembered, and her eyes held an unsettling depth. I could hardly breathe. "Help us," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath yet cutting through the silence like a knife. I stumbled backward, heart racing. Was this a trick of the mind? My instincts screamed at me to run, but something in her gaze held me captive. "What do you mean?" I managed to croak, still scrambling for answers in the midst of my terror. I was lost in this puzzle of shadows and voices, and as I looked into her pleading eyes, panic surged once more. "Before it's too late," she repeated, her voice fading like smoke. And just as swiftly, she vanished. I stood frozen, caught in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. I had more questions than answers now. Who were they? And what exactly was I supposed to find? Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped sharply, and the whispers began again. Now they were not just in my head. They were outside, clawing at the edges of my sanity. Something was coming for me, and I had no idea how to prepare. I was still reeling from what had just happened. The woman's image burned into my mind. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I tried to catch my breath, grasping for anything that made sense. The whispers grew louder, like a symphony of voices, echoing around my apartment as if the very walls were alive. I shot up, heart pounding, and rushed to the window. Outside, the streetlight flickered, casting eerie shadows across the pavement. I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were upon me, watching from the darkness. I steadied myself, took a deep breath, and resolved to figure this out. I grabbed my notebook, hoping to organize my swirling thoughts. I began jotting down everything I'd learned, the forum posts, the photographer, and the mysterious woman. But what next? The cryptic warning hung over me like a thick cloud. Time felt pressing. Checking the time on my phone, I realized it was already past midnight. I shivered. If the gathering was indeed happening as the other post suggested, I had to get back to the park. Caution was tossed aside as urgency took over. I needed answers. I slipped on my jacket and grabbed my flashlight, the one from earlier. Stepping outside, the air was colder, every rustle of leaves behind me setting my nerves on edge. This time, I felt more aware, my senses sharpened by fear and adrenaline. I entered the park and took the same path I ran from. Each step felt more treacherous than the last. I moved with caution, illuminating the world around me, the beam of light dancing on the trunks of twisted trees. As I ventured deeper, the whispers changed. They were no longer random sounds, they formed words, enticing and sinister. "Join us." I shook my head, trying to dispel the hallucination. But as I turned a corner, my flashlight caught something flickering in the distance. Candles? My heart raced. Could it be the gathering? I crept toward the light, curiosity battling against fear. As I neared, the sight stopped me cold. A circle of people stood huddled, their faces obscured by the darkness, each one holding a candle. They swayed gently, directing their attention to the center. A figure in a long cloak appeared to lead them, arms raised high, their voice a melodic chant. "Help us! Help us!" It echoed in my mind like a broken record, mixing with my own thoughts. I crouched behind a thick tree trunk, trying to understand. That familiar pull tugged at me, as if the figure calling out was somehow connected to the mysterious woman, but I caught sight of something else, a flash of pale skin beneath the low light of the candles. It was her. The woman from the photos. She stood just outside the circle, her eyes closed, absorbed in whatever was taking place. That's when I saw it. A shadow, darker than the night itself, slithered around the gathering, lurking at the edges. My instincts screamed at me. I had to get out before they noticed me. I turned to retreat when a sudden flare of light erupted, momentarily blinding me. Then everything went dark. I stumbled backward, trying to regain my bearings. My heart raced, each beat echoing in my ears as I blinked against the darkness. The faint aroma of burnt wax and something metallic filled the air, mingling with a hint of damp earth. I held my breath and strained to hear. The chanting continued, distant but now laced with an urgency that sent shivers down my spine. I took a cautious step forward, the flashlight now useless in the absence of light. My hands fumbled, searching for anything to help me make sense of the sudden void around me. The last memory was of that flickering light, and I had to remind myself to stay calm. Panic wouldn't help me here. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence, sharp and clear. "What are you doing here?" It cut through the air with an edge, and I froze. I recognized the voice. It was the woman. I cursed my decision to come. "Leave now," she warned, her tone tinged with urgency. "You don't understand what's happening." I didn't move. The tension in the air crackled around me as I processed her words. Understanding? What was there to understand? It was a gathering of shadows chanting for help, and she was part of it. Before I could respond, the candlelight flared back to life, illuminating the clearing to reveal the gathering in its full form. The cloaked figure stood at the center, arms raised like a dark angel, and around them swayed the other participants, their faces twisted in rapture or agony. As my eyes adjusted, I saw that the flickering shadows had solidified into something far more sinister. The darkness pulsed just at the edge of the circle, an inky, slithering mass that writhed as if alive. The words from the cloaked figure surged into a crescendo. "Come forth, reveal thyself." The others joined in unison, and the air shimmered with energy. The call echoed deep within me, as if it sought to pull me into their eerie embrace. Panic gripped me, and I made my choice. I spun on my heel and dashed back towards the trees. The whispers morphed into screams, and the energy shifted wildly. I ran as fast as I could, fueled by the dread of what might happen next. Branches slapped against my arms, but I didn't stop. I could hear the gathering behind me, and for a moment, I risked a glance back. The shadow had broken free, and it surged toward me, tendrils reaching out like elongated limbs, hungry for something that I felt it brush against my ankle, cold as ice, and I stumbled, crashing to the ground. I rolled over, scrabbling desperately back to my feet, but fear seized me. I couldn't stop. I had to escape. As I broke through the last of the trees, the park's lights finally appeared like a beacon. I sprinted toward them, mustering every ounce of strength to push forward. But just as I reached the edge of the park, a powerful force knocked me backward that I gasped as I hit the ground, the gravel biting into my palms. My head spun, and I could barely make sense of my surroundings. Was it too late? Had I stepped beyond the retribution they sought? Then I heard the woman's voice again, closer now, laced with urgency. "You need to understand." I looked up, catching her silhouette against the light. "You don't know what you're about to unleash." And just like that, the park faded into darkness again, and all I knew was impending dread. I jolted awake, my heart racing as I struggled to piece together the remnants of my nightmare. The shadows from the park loomed large in my mind, their desperate cries echoing softly. I was back in my room, but the uneasiness clung to me like a heavy blanket. The chirping of crickets filtered in through my window, a reminder that the ordinary world continued outside. I tried to shake off the grip of fear, but it clung persistently. It wasn't just a nightmare. Something had happened out there, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I glanced at my phone. The screen illuminated my cluttered room, dimly lit yet somehow comforting. The time read 3:15 a.m. I should have been asleep, but I felt the pull to investigate. I hurriedly threw on a jacket and slipped on my sneakers. In a way, I was searching for answers that might lay in the same park that had terrified me just hours before. Once outside, the night felt thick and oppressive. Each step toward the park was haunted by the memories of what I had seen. The cloaked figure, the chanting, the desperate urgency in that woman's voice. I paused at the entrance, hesitating. Maybe I didn't need to know, but curiosity gripped me tighter than my fear. I pushed through the gate, the metal creaking as I stepped into the darkness. The path looked different, as if it secretly shifted in the night. My instincts screamed for me to turn back, but I forged ahead, determined to uncover the truth. The air grew colder, heavier, and a shiver ran down my spine. I took cautious steps towards the clearing. Then, something glinted in the moonlight on the path ahead, something that caught my breath. It was a piece of fabric, a black cloak, half buried in the leaves. A remnant of what had happened. I knelt to pick it up, my heart in my throat. The fabric was torn and frayed, but it pulsed with an odd energy that I couldn't explain. As I examined it, a sound broke through the stillness. A branch crackled. I spun around, scanning the shadows. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence responded. My hand tightened around the cloak, and I rose slowly, every nerve on high alert. That's when I saw it. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, partially hidden by trees, watching me. The angle of their face was obscured, but I felt the intensity of their gaze. "Help me," a voice whispered, but it was eerily distorted. It didn't belong to the woman I had seen before. I took a step back, heart pounding wildly. Fear gripped me as the figure stepped forward, bringing with it an onslaught of memories from the park shadows, chains of whispers, and a growing sense of doom. "Wait!" I shouted, instinctively raising the cloak in defense. But the figure only smiled, a slow, chilling grin spreading across their lips. "You have no idea what you've taken." And then, the world around me seemed to collapse into darkness once again. My heart sank as the swirling shadows closed in, and my scream echoed into the void. I gasped as I seemed to fall through nothingness, my body weightless, lost in a blur of darkness. And just like that, I landed on hard ground with a thud, the air knocked from my lungs. I rolled onto my back, blinking against the shock, trying to make sense of the swirling blackness around me. Slowly, the shapes around me solidified, and I realized I was in the park, but it was different. The trees loomed larger, their branches twisting grotesquely toward the sky. The chill in the air was sharper, gnawing at my skin. I attempted to rise to my feet, but my legs felt heavy, as if the ground was pulling them down. Panic gripped me. I scanned the area, searching for the cloaked figure. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice cracking. The only answer was the rustling of leaves, an eerie whisper I couldn't quite understand. Suddenly, I heard a distorted echo of laughter, drawing closer. It spread like ice through my veins. "You wanted to know the truth," the voice taunted, drifting through the shadows. "Now you must face it." I pushed myself to my feet, adrenaline kicking in. "What truth?" I shouted, trying to sound brave but trembling all the same. Nothing made sense. I felt dizzy as flashes of the earlier night flooded back, the woman, the ritual, the cloaked figure. Had I stepped into a trap? A chill ran through me as I considered the possibility that in the distance, I spotted a flickering light beneath the thick trees. Drawn by the glow, I stumbled toward it, each step feeling heavier. The light grew brighter, revealing a circle of figures dressed in those same dark cloaks. My heart raced. They were gathered around something on the ground, a shadowy mass, writhing and flickering like a candle in a breeze. "What are you doing?" I shouted, desperation mingling with fear as I closed the distance. Their movements were synchronized, almost ritualistic, their heads bowed as if in reverence. One of the cloaked figures turned to face me, revealing a familiar face. It was the woman from my nightmare. Her eyes were wide, flickering with intensity. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "You've awakened something you can't control." "What have I done?" I pressed, my voice rising in urgency. "I just found silence." She interrupted, raising a hand. "You don't understand. You're not meant to meddle with this." Suddenly, the ground beneath me trembled, and the flickering mass began to pulse. I took a step back, air ripping through me. "What is that?" "It's a gateway," she replied, her voice firm yet desperate. "You must leave now." I turned to run, but the shadows twisted around my feet, winding like ropes. "No!" I screamed, desperately pulling at the darkness. The cloaked figures chanted in unison, their voices rising in a haunting crescendo. As I fought against the shadows, a surge of energy erupted from the ground. It encircled me, dragging me toward the flickering mass. "Help!" I shouted, my voice swallowed by the chaos. Just as I felt myself being pulled into the darkness, everything froze. Then with a blinding flash, I was thrown back into the park, lying sprawled across the path. I gasped for breath, my heart racing, the taste of terror fresh on my tongue that I scrambled to my feet, my pulse pounding in my ears. I looked around, the park now silent and deserted. The cloaked figures were gone. But one thing was clear, I was marked by whatever had been awakened that I stumbled back toward the exit, dread pooling in my gut. What truth had I uncovered? And what would it cost me to find out? The air was thick as I made my way out of the park. Each step felt heavy, as if the ground itself wanted to pull me back into the shadows. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see those cloaked figures following me. But the path was empty, just the whispering trees and the chilling breeze that I reached the park gate, my palms slick against the metal. There was no relief in leaving. The feeling of dread was a weight on my chest, growing heavier with each passing moment. What had I awakened? As I walked down the street, I could still hear that laughter echoing in my mind. I needed to do something. I couldn't just let this go. My thoughts raced, piecing together a plan. I had to find answers. I made my way home, but the quiet of my apartment felt oppressive. My phone buzzed on the table, breaking the silence. I picked it up, a light of hope sparking in my mind. Maybe someone online could help. I opened the Craigslist app, scrolling through the ads. I knew it wasn't wise, but I felt compelled to find anyone who might understand what had happened that night. That I clicked on a strange post titled "Gateway Keepers, We Know the Truth." My heart raced. It was vague, just a few lines about rituals and hidden knowledge. The poster claimed to have answers and wanted to connect with those who had experienced something otherworldly. A surge of desperation fueled me. I messaged the user, my fingers racing over the keyboard. I didn't care how reckless this felt. I needed to hear from someone who might know more. I hit send and waited. Minutes dragged on like hours. Was it foolish to believe this could lead to an answer? I paced the apartment, glancing at the clock. Just when I thought maybe I had made a mistake, my phone chimed. The response sent a chill down my spine. Meet me at the edge of the park at midnight. Bring something to bind the truth. My stomach dropped. Midnight. The very heart of darkness. I felt a mix of anxiety and an undeniable urge to go. What could possibly bind the truth? I thought back to the woman's warning. I should have listened. But the thought of answers was intoxicating. If that cloaked figure was connected, I knew I had to confront it. As the hours passed, I tried to prepare. I rummaged through drawers, searching for anything I could use, old herbs from cooking, a piece of string, a small candle. None of it felt right, but it was all I had. Finally, the clock struck 11:30. A pit of fear gnawed at my stomach, but I forced myself out the door. I took my makeshift offerings and stepped into the night, the chill tightening around me like a hug from the void. When I reached the park, the trees loomed like silent sentinels. I followed the familiar path to the edge, glancing around, half expecting shadows to slip between the trees. My heart raced as I waited, shifting nervously from foot to foot. That's when I heard the soft rustle of leaves, the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. I held my breath, bracing myself for the unknown. Then everything went dark. I stumbled forward, disoriented. Everything around me faded to black, swallowing the park whole. My instincts screamed. I shouldn't have come here. The sudden darkness felt like a shroud, thick and suffocating. I took a step back, trembling as I tried to regain my bearings. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely breaking through the heavy silence. No response. Just the distant rustle of branches swaying. I flipped my phone on, the screen casting a weak light. An eerie glow illuminated the space in front of me but revealed nothing. Not a figure, not even a hint of that laughter that had haunted me. As I turned slowly, a whisper slithered through my headphones. My phone had received a new message. "Keep the light close. It gets curious." I felt a chill run down my spine. Someone was watching, and the unknown was closing in. Suddenly, the sound of a branch snapping nearby made my heart race. I turned abruptly, expecting to see someone. Instead, I was met with shadows dancing among the trees, elusive and mocking. I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was alive, twisting around me, and I was just another lost element in its chaos. Then, the message flashed again. Are you ready for the truth? My breath caught. I was about to type a frantic reply when I heard it again, laughter, echoing through the treetops. It was that same sound from before, and it sent electric shockwaves of fear through me. I hesitated, looking around wildly. I needed to leave. I didn't care about the truth anymore. But as I made my way back, the path I had taken seemed to vanish, replaced by a thick haze. Panic tightened my chest. Where was the exit? Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement. A figure emerged, shrouded in darkness yet startlingly familiar, the cloaked figure from the park. My heart dropped as it stepped into the faint light of my screen. Its face was hidden, but I could feel its gaze locking onto me. Did you bring what I asked for? The figure said, its voice smooth, almost seductive. I clutched my bag, unsure of how to respond. The offering, a collection of bits and pieces I deemed foolish, seemed inadequate now. I stammered, I have something. But I need to know who you are first. The figure tilted its head, amusement lingering in its tone. Curious souls always seek answers. However, curiosity can lead you down paths of no return. A breathing silence hung between us, and I could almost hear the trees shift, as if encouraging me to stay. Just as I decided to muster the courage, something sharp stung my arm. A thin branch snagged my sleeve, pulling me back. I gasped and jerked away, but it was too late. I stumbled backward, and in that moment of chaos, I felt the ground give way beneath me. I was falling, faster than I could comprehend. The laughter now echoed all around, a cruel symphony playing welcome to the darkness below. Then, silence. I gasped awake once more, heart racing, but this time I wasn't in my apartment. I was back in the park, but it wasn't the familiar clearing I had known. The shadows loomed larger, twisting and shifting like living things. My breath misted the air, mingling with an oppressive silence that hung in the atmosphere. I slowly rose, limbs weak and unsteady. Each sound a rustle, a whisper felt magnified, pressing against my chest like a weight. I looked around, searching for any sign of the cloaked figure or the woman from my nightmares. Why are you here? A voice broke the stillness, cold and lilting like a dark melody. I whipped around to find the woman standing behind me, her eyes piercing through me. Help us, she urged, her expression pleading yet unreadable. What is going on? I stammered, backing away instinctively. What do you want from me? They come for those who disturb the balance, she said, her tone shifting from desperation to warning. You opened a door that should have remained shut. Open a door? My head spun with the weight of her words. I didn't mean to. I just wanted answers. Knowledge comes at a cost, she pressed, stepping closer. You must forge a path to undo what you've done before it's too late. The shadows danced behind her, restless and coiling, like predators sensing vulnerability. I could feel their eyes boring into me. But how? I don't understand. She studied me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. You must confront it, not run from it. Find what binds us. That was when I remembered the cloak, the one I had carried with me. I fumbled in my bag, searching for the torn fabric. The moment I pulled it out, a kinetic energy pulsed through the air, cascading around us. The shadows recoiled, then surged forward, swirling and bending around the edges like smoke eager to ignite. Do it! She yelled, her voice rising above the cacophony of whispers that circled us. I steadied my grip on the cloak, eyes fixed on the darkness closing in like a living funnel. I command you. I shouted, heart pounding. Reveal what you are. As the words escaped my lips, the shadows froze, then burst open, revealing images swirling within a dizzying montage of faces, places, and echoes of the past. The cloaked figures, the frenzied chanting, and there in the center, the very photograph I'd found, the woman, smiling, caught in a moment of perfect stillness. I staggered, overwhelmed by the onslaught of memories flooding my mind. Try as I might to grasp it, the images churned, flickering between serenity and despair. No. This can't be all there is. Remember why you came, the woman urged, her voice straining against the cacophony. Remember who was lost. With determination, I focused on the last photo I'd seen. You're not just shades, you're people. I cried, realizing that each face was tied to a story, a life that once pulsed with vibrancy but had become ensnared in this darkness. A visceral shift rippled through the air. Save us. The plea swelled until a wave of sound erupted, permeating the shadows. In an instant, the figures began to emerge, suddenly a blend of light and dark, twisting, struggling to break free. Use the cloak. The woman yelled over the chaos. I unfurled it, stepping into the center of the maelstrom, instinct guiding me. I spun around, holding it like a shield. I bind your souls to the light. I declared, summoning every ounce of strength. The power surged through me, a brilliant flash of light that erupted, engulfing the shadows. For a moment, everything became blindingly bright. When the light faded, I found myself again in the clearing. The park was silent, illuminated only by the faint glow of the moon. No cloaked figures, no grasping shadows, just the ambient whispers of the night. I fell to my knees, panting, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Had I freed them? Had I made a difference? But as I glanced around, the memory of them lingered in my mind, those faces now a part of me. A chill ran through me as I realized that while I'd escaped the gathering, while the shadows receded, for now the echoes of that night would remain, a haunting reminder that curiosity has its price. Would the shadows return someday? I couldn't shake the feeling of watching eyes. I considered the darkness that had swirled around me, the lingering hint of laughter. Were they gone, or were they just waiting? I stood slowly, heart still racing. The air was still thick with trepidation, yet for now, I was alive, my senses razor sharp. As I walked out of the park, I couldn't ignore the questions that hung in the air, unanswered, a lingering uncertainty that would forever change how I viewed the night, darkness, and the elusive pull of the unknown. Maybe in the silence that followed the storm, the shadows simply bided their time, ready to reclaim what was once thought lost. But I had survived, and for now, that was enough.